Hey peeps, Schism. Welcome to my tier list. Is this a normal video? Not quite, but uh, uh, since there's been all the talk coming around of what is the strongest code in the game, and is it Kankanake? It is. I wanted to go through and kind of do a podcast type of video, but not a Veterans of Fact podcast episode, because there is a little bit of a visual element here. But I wanted to go over which are the best codes in that Daylight, because I think a lot of people are interested in, that is a hot button debate issue topic, but, let's just have some fun with it and talk about what are my thoughts on the Dead killers. So, what is the best killer in Dead right now? Some people will say it's Nurse. My personal opinion is it's Kaneki. The reason is, right, Nurse has a lot of potential for downing people. She is very, very lethal once you get good at her. But unlike Nurse, Kaneki has an insane mobility. And I think that because he has a lethality of that level, he also is able to ignore anti-tunnel. He's also able to play most loops in the game. He makes the strongest tiles in the game completely irrelevant. And he just has so many things going for him, and in the scenarios which someone like Nurse would be bad, he's actually really, really good. And he also doesn't take a lot of effort to actually play him at that level. So I think it just has to be that Kaneki is currently the best killer in the game for all those reasons. It's a very finicky place. Like, I don't think it's very far, but I do think he's the best killer in the game right now, purely because he has so many things going for him, and he also gets to ignore a lot of aspects of a normal gameplay loop, like Nurse, but instead of totally ignoring normal gameplay, he trades that for immense mobility that Nurse couldn't even dream of. And so secondly, the second best card in the game, to my opinion, is the Nurse. I think you don't need to have a big explainer on why Nurse is one of the best cards in the game. She just plays a different game with it by Daylight. Her blinks go through the environment, and if you are a good Nurse, there is nothing that the survivors can do to you. And you just have a timer upon which you will hit survivors. You still have pretty good mobility with your blinks. It's not that good, but you have very good mobility. You ignore most things in the game, because you just don't play the game. You don't play around pallets, you don't play around windows. It's all about the line of sight, and you just teleport into survivors. And the Nurse was conceived when the by Daylight was a survivors playground, and they could have infinites, 14 double pallets per square millimeter, and she was designed to counter that by ignoring that by Daylight's gameplay loop. Now, survivors have been nerfed thousands of times, and Nurse also has been nerfed, but she still has a fundamental gameplay loop ignorance going for her, which makes her just really, really strong. You'll also notice, by the way, the tiers in this tier list don't follow the usual S, A, B, C tier directive. That's because I think most killers in the game are very, very playable, and when you put them into like, oh, this is a C tier killer, people will feel like, oh, that's bad. So that's the reason why we have best, really good, pretty good, good, and challenging and bad. So most of the killers, even in the challenging tier, you will be able to see it with, you will be able to have a good time with. It's just that some killers are way easier than others and way stronger than others. But overall, whichever killer you're picking, most likely you're going to have a good time. So next up after Nurse is Blight. Blight's been hit with an array of Nurse over his time eventually. Very, very late, because I assume that his original developer McLean sold his soul to BHVR to keep him from nerfing him. Recently, and by recently I mean like over a year ago now, he's lost his Hug tag, he had a lot of his add-ons changed, so Blight is in a weird spot now. Or previously he was able to play around a lot of the tiles more effortlessly with Hug tag, and he felt smoother to play. Like, he slid a lot more, he had some more busted add-ons. Now he has some really good add-ons, and also a very powerful kit. But when you're playing the smaller loops, the loops that Breaker and 1 killers are more likely to play, you have to either have a really, really good bounce logic, or just you don't use your power. And the most effective strategy, it just kind of remains forcing a pal down, breaking with brutal strength, and then chaining into an M2 which is very boring, but it is very effective. He kind of just deletes holding W from game. You cannot hold W against Blight. And he still has a very good chasing power inside loops, which paired with the mobility and the token recharge, you're just essentially always present on the map. Not to the same degree as Kaneki, of course, but you're very, very mobile, and you have a very, very powerful full power to go along with it. So, it's no question why Blight is so high up. Now, something that might surprise some people is the fact that Dracula is a fourth best killer in the game, in my opinion. Well, the reason is, Dracula came out a bit underwhelming because he had 3 powers, and all of them were kind of a mixed bag, right? He was a jack of all trades, master of none, which I thought was a perfectly fine design that was kind of fun. But since then, he's gotten many, many, many buffs and like just a teensy bit of a nerf to his power. His dash is like the dog form is essentially like a better Wesker. Like it has less mobility, but he has mobility in the bad form, and his dog form is just kind of unanimously agreed by I think most Wesker players to just be better Wesker. There's no reason to play Wesker. You can just play wolf form. You have the 2 dashes. You have like a version of a hug tag, and you also have like 3 bloodlust 1 from the scent orbs. It's really weird. And besides that, he also has the bad form, which is basically like spirit. Very close to spirit in a lot of manners. The mobility, the no cooldown. Then you can also force people to like run back into dead zones if they drop a god pad by just doing a little mind game. It is also you have Hellfire. I almost forgot. It is just master of all trades kind of power. He has 3 powers, and 2.5 of them are basically could be an entire killer in their own right, which makes him very, very good and very, very oppressive. Even though he had some slight nerfs, he's mostly been receiving huge buffs, and he is a very, very full power killer with a decent selection of items as well. So it's just unquestionably he's really, really, really good. And people are sleeping on him because he felt a little clunky on release, and a lot of the feedback that was from the PDB is still kind of touted today, even though it doesn't apply anymore. It's kind of just like people have not kept up with the changes to this killer. Speaking of changes to the killer that people have not kept up with, the Singularity. Now, the Singularity released, and people thought he was bad. In actuality, what happened with Singularity is that he was just really hard to play. He was really hard to play, and his reward for playing at that level was high, but it wasn't as high as like someone like, I don't know, Blight or Kaneki. So essentially, people didn't play to his highest level because it was too hard for them, and then they just, killer is just weak, which wasn't the case. People just kind of whined and received buffs after buffs after buffs, and people still didn't play him and still had a bad time with him because they were just bad at the killer. Because he requires a lot of attention, he requires a lot of effort to play, and people just thought he was weak, and his kill rates were weak, when in actuality, when played well, he was a really fierce fighter. And so what BH3R did is they just overbuffed him to straight hell. So now he's very straightforward and easy to play, and also when you were using him at his big potential, he kind of just destroys things. So, Singularity, he had his little biopods around the map, and then infect survivors, then teleport to them, ignore pallets, ignore windows, those thanks to his overcloak mode, and there's kind of not much you can do. So first up, he has a really, really good chase power, right? He has a lot of info in the game as well. And also, once you are at the final stage of the game, say you fucked up the entire game, you've been chasing this one good survivor who looped you out of your ass somehow, though they don't have an AP because it's solo queue, somehow they managed it. Well, then you can still play with regen really, really well with Singularity, and you can maintain a level of pressure that is just so oppressive and requires so much coordination to break. It's kind of like an old Skull Merchant regens. There is just such a mismatch of required energy to counterplay a strategy compared to the level of brain power that is needed for a killer to produce a gameplay scenario, that Singularity just is way too oppressive and is way free because people just were bad at him, so behavior buffed him. Speaking of buffs and roller coasters, the Hillbilly, what once was the best killer in Dead by Daylight, then was the worst killer in Dead by Daylight almost, now is one of the best, but not as good as he once was. So Hillbilly, when he was reworked, he was an S tier killer because he had like basically no cooldown. He had cooldown add-ons. Then they nerfed his cooldown add-ons, but they made an insane change that just kind of like made Hillbilly way easier. So the core tenet of Hillbilly's power, besides the instant down, besides the really insane map ability, is the curving. So at the start, he has a much higher turn rate than he has for the rest of the sprint, and that allows him to curve survivors, to get crazy downs, play like crazy. So they instead of the window in which your turn rate is higher from 0.75 seconds to 1 second. And you may say, oh, that's only a 0.25 second change, but it's insane. It essentially allowed him to play loops that he wouldn't be able to play. And even if you were playing a loop badly, you still had a much, like, this was like a 33% window increase to using one of the most lethal powers in the game. And coupled with the overdrive mechanic being completely free, and just like half the time, half of the game, you would have like double the speed and faster charge time. Hillbilly was an oppressive machine that like required no brain power whatsoever. Since then, overdrive has seen a slight nerf, and his cooldown add-ons got a slight nerf. His best add-ons like low pro got a nerf, so you can't down survivors anymore, so you don't have a free zoning no matter what the survivors do. He still is extremely oppressive, he still is extremely powerful, and he maintains the extended curve window, so he's much easier to play. There's just so many things to his kit that make him very easy, straightforward, and the counterplay required for his survivors is much harder. Crouch tag has gotten nerfed. So many aspects to this kit have gotten improved. So many aspects of Survivor's kit to counter him have gotten removed. It's just, he's just really good. He's able to be across the map at any point for free, no cooldown, down to his power or anything, in token, and sort of bullshit. For just using his power, he gets a better version of his power. He is just a very good killer. Twins are also just a very good killer. People really underestimate the strength of the twins. The twins are very lethal, and it's just, they require so much thought compared to some other killers, and just a little bit of more luck, that people often underestimate them. People also very rarely play them correctly. And also because, you know, they're such a low pick rate killer, they kind of benefit from the fact that people just don't play them enough for people to learn the counterplay really. So twins just have like a 6 meter a second chasing power, which means, hey, they have a 6 meter a second chasing power, which means there's like nothing you can do once Victor is after you. Most of the time, if the twins play it well. So they can slug extremely well. They can harass people of generators. They can camp pretty well. They could do proxy camping really well. There's so many things that go for them. The one thing that keeps them from being like one of the best guys in the game is the fact that stuff like Burgener Forever exists, stuff like Exponential exists, stuff like Unbreakable exists. There are certain perk combinations that can counter them really hard, and that's why they can fall off. But because kind of being able to play against the wins heavily relies on you being healthy, and with behavior kind of just annihilating 99% of healing from orbit, unless you're in Survivor Friends Circle of Healing, going against the twins can be a really rough time. Artist is an unappreciated killer who was the start of the anti-loop brain dead meta and killer design for a long while. She has a lot of potential. So she can place down our birds at loops to deny them immediately. She can shotgun people. She can set up cross maps with an add-on. She can set up downs across the map and multiple injuries. There's so many things going for her, but she is kind of tricky to play. You can't do her very old PvP way to play her, where you just injure people for putting birds at them. You have to give it a little more thought. You have to understand the survivor movement patterns, and because it requires so much thought, people don't play her very much, even though she's really good and can compete with the best survivors on her good days. The Oni, although he might struggle in public matches sometimes, The reason why he's here so high up is just he has, I think, the strongest ability to come back from any situation, almost than any other character in the game. He takes a little while to get his power. You actually need to capitalize on survivor making a mistake or just force them into a dead zone, get the hits, get the injuries, suck up the blood. But once you do and you have that power, you can turn around the game in a matter of moments. If you have your power ready, nobody can do a safe rescue, even if they're healthy. You just have the biggest ability of snowballing in the game, and I think snowballing is probably one of the biggest aspects of a Kiddo's kit that is underappreciated, and it also makes them the most strongest because it's just so good to be able to turn any situation, any slight mistake, which Solaris constantly make, into just a disaster for the entire team, and only requires the entire team to perform well, which means any team with slightly weak link, he'll capitalize on, he'll suck off a bluff, and then he'll be in power, which will mean you either have to hide or you will die, and that's it. Currently, he's bugged, so like his flicks are slower than I think they're intended. They patched in 180 flicks as a baseline feature for even controller players, but they're slow. As far as I understand, that's a bug. They're probably supposed to be fast, as Behavior have communicated. So I expect that to be fixed. If it's not fixed, he'll probably fall down a few tiers. But, you know, that's fine. Pyramid Head. Speaking of flicks, he also is able to do them. But the main reason why Pyramid Head is here is he can ignore a lot of loops in the game because he can just shoot through them if you're playing really well. And he can also just tunnel you out. That's simple. He has a very straightforward, powerful chasing power, and he also has a very good anti tunnel power, which also skips the time he takes to hook, which is a really powerful ability. A lot of the reason why people might pop gens, why people don't have enough pressure sometimes, is just the time it takes to hook survivors. He also can avoid saves a lot of the time. I'm using his ability. He has just two very big, again, simple things going for him, but he's just really good. So, you know, it's a very simple equation. Spirit, someone that might surprise you that she's like so far down comparatively to where she used to be. She at some point was like contender for the second best character in the game, even like passing Blight, even though he was even stronger back then. It's just the fact that Spirit has gotten nerfed substantially over the years. She has had her entire add-on busted set removed. She's gotten baseline nerfs, the bugged recharge cooldown buff to her duration add-ons got nerfed. So just so many little things have over time put her down. She's still pretty good. She's still very lethal, but she is much more out of the line than before. Where before, even without Spirit was still a force to be reckoned with. She had so many little phase tag things going for her, where you're faking phasing, and survivors don't know because you don't have any indicators for using your power. You have add-ons that completely transform your power. Nowadays, it's more just like you just need to run Rusty Flute because otherwise your cooldown is really long, and you don't have as much duration. So she's still very good. She's still very impressive. She still has a really good chase power. She doesn't have nearly as much mobility anymore and nearly as many busted add-ons, and she has much more counterplay than before. So she's still really good, just not anywhere near as good as you might think by her past interactions. The Houndmaster might be a surprise pick because a lot of people put her into D tier one of these, and she undoubtedly was, and maybe you could argue she still is because of the bugs she has, but I'm assuming she functions mostly well. She has a very oppressive chase power. She can kind of like ignore like drop towers mid chase because the dog walls over really fast. She can play around most towers really well. She is a pretty demanding killer on your brain power sometimes because you need to do a split-second reaction to send out the dog to hit survivors. But she can also play around on the hooks very well with the dog holding survivors. There's a lot of things going for her, and she has a very strong chase ability that people underestimate because she just didn't get played a lot because how buggy she was. And yeah, her ants are also pretty alright. Of course, there's the infamous stop not drop pattern. That got nerfed into oblivion, I think like by 40x compared to the PTP. But, it's still pretty decent add-on selection for her, and she just gets a lot of hits that our characters usually would have to use a little more effort to get, but she kind of just has the dog working with her, and she is kind of this live mini twin situation that is constantly occurring. But the bugs do keep her down. The Plague is a killer that kind of here is purely because of her add-ons. I think if she didn't have the add-on selection that she has, she would probably be like an entire row down. But just her add-on selection is insane. So without her add-ons, Plague just has like a kind of power that mostly keeps everyone injured, and then she can occasionally use her really strong chase power that can hit multiple survivors, hit the same survivor in the same time. It's really good. It's really effective, really scary, but it's the add-ons that make her really strong. There's an add-on that just basically gives you free aura reveal on everyone. There's an add-on that makes you have your power like half the match. There's so many add-ons that make Plague like go up a singular tier on their own, and the fact that she has like 20 of them is insane. There's so many little strategies you can do of like forever infecting objects, or while Purge no longer infects survivors. You can move much faster when you're holding your Purge. You can have a more effectiveness in your Purge. There's just so many little things as survivors that you need to keep track of, and you need to spread out your cleanse as well against her. Otherwise, you can take advantage of them. There's basically so much to her kit that she can do with her power with just a few add-ons that kind of makes her a really strong contender. And when she is in her full like red power, she's also one of the best chase killers in the game. So simply, she's really good, and she makes survivors lose a lot of the crutches that are usually based on healing, and she provides them with a lot to think about. And she has a really good answer. Nemesis is someone you might not expect here before, but since his rework, soft rework, he had just gotten really good. His hinder was really strong, on his tentacle was really strong, on his best add-ons are really strong, on he is a very consistent early game now. He just has so many things going for him. He's the best battle shredder in the game. He still has zombies to harass survivors, because they're like much less bulky now. He just has so many things that just like kind of power crabs him up, which he realized he's really good now. And in tier 3, his range is genuinely impressive. So keep an eye out for Nemesis. He is kind of a sleeper pick that people I don't think have realized how good he is. Wesker is someone you might be surprised to see below Nemesis. It's simply just that Wesker's more powerful strategies kind of relied on him being kind of a dick, and behavior have nerfed being a dick. So Wesker used to be really good, one of the best guns of the game. The reason why he's much weaker now is just the infection hinder changes. You used to be able to tunnel out survivors really well with the infection. You kind of just chase them once with your power, then you hook them, then you come back, they're already half infected. Once you spend a little bit of time chasing them, 8% hindered, and they just basically go down no matter what they do. And nowadays, because of the 1% reset and the fact that the hinder is now a reasonable amount, he is like notably lower, and like someone like Dracula basically invalidates his power anyway. However, he still is pretty good. He still has all the things that previously were going for him. And besides that, and he also has gotten a slight buff to his recharge power, which is nice and feels comfy. But he has fallen off a little bit, and you might not find him as effective as he once been. Also, survivors have just gotten much better at kind of playing him, because he was the most popular killer of the game for like forever. VM, no. Really strong killer with complicated to use, but strong chase power that is pretty oppressive. But the thing that's really oppressive about his kit is just the fact that he can have his hallucinations, which you can manipulate, and then you can play around with regen really well, or be anywhere, and there are like basically no tells if the hallucination is nearby. He has a pretty good add-on set, and a lot of things are basically going for him that make him really effective, and a lot of survivors just don't have a good grasp on his counterplay. Huntress is someone that might have been much higher some time ago, but she's kind of fallen off, even though she's gotten some really nasty buffs. So she has 7 hatches base kit now, which means you'll have to basically never reload. She can just throw hatches willy-nilly. She's had some really nice reload buffs. So she basically not only has to reload less, her reloads are faster. It's been a big buff marathon for Huntress, but she kind of just fallen off basically just due to the map changes in the game. All of the maps have like 50,000 prop spam now. There's 50,000 line of sight blockers. You can't set up orbitals consistently. Collisions are constantly broken on all maps. Her power is like broken half the time. She's just been a victim of like power creep and the game space changing around her, less her or herself. It's just that even though she's got some very nasty buffs, there's just been notable nerfs to her in lieu of the game changing around. Pinhead, the Cenobite, no longer a killer in Dead by Daylight that you can buy, but he's still killing in the Dead by Daylight game, so I guess we'll put him on the tier list anyway. Cenobite has a pretty decent chase power, not one of the best. His main draw is just kind of like using a few of his stronger add-ons and then also kind of harassing survivors with the box. If you're really good at him, you can almost always know where the box is. You can pull off flashy plays. He can be very tricky to play for a beginner, but once you master him, he can give you very good results that many other killers cannot. Paired with a few perks he has very nice synergies with, you can find the Cenobite to be very lethal indeed, and kind of just like make solo queue survivors, especially because they're not very good at coordinating, kind of just give up and die. Speaking of just making survivors give up and die, the Knight is actually someone that I made for a little while after his rework, but not immediately after. It was after they reintroduced spawning guards to cancel a previous guard spawn. Essentially, Knight now is a harasser multitasker killer, where before you might have seen him try to do the stupid pop out the guard. Now he's going to chase you from two sides. He's going to hit you eventually. Now, his main purpose is use counter effects with Chase. Chase to break a pallet immediately, gotta just walk at you and ignore a pallet you just dropped. Or send out assassins, assassin and jailer, to survivors across the map to make himself undetectable with Town Watch Torch. And basically make sure that at any time he's chasing like two survivors at the same time. Oftentimes the assassin can get some actual like hits or even downs, and all the meantime you're undetectable and you're chasing another survivor, which just creates a lot of pressure on the survivor team that most teams are unable to handle and are unable to deal with. Xenomorph has gotten some nerfs lately, which means that she's not as good as she was before, but she's still a pretty good killer. She has pretty good mobility, she has a pretty good chase power, and her turret counterplay kind of only exists at the much higher levels. Most of the teams you will face will probably fail miserably to utilize their turrets effectively. And although the tail has seen some nerfs, it also seen some minor buffs. There's been buffs like the emergency helmet being integrated partially base kit. So you're sitting very comfortably. You're not going to be just absolutely destroying or wiping the floor of survivors, but you're going to be very comfy. You're going to have good info. You're going to have a decent map ability, and all the meantime, survivors will have to really coordinate and counterplay and spend a lot of time waddling about. Someone that is like very radically different from Xeno is just Rafe is just really good at doing the standard things. He has good map ability. He has good stealth. He has alright chase power at a lot of tiles, and he is really good at just keeping up the generators. He has a very good add-on set that is just pretty good, and he just has a lot of small things going for him. He's not the best kid in the game by any stretch of imaginations, but he's very comfy, and for a lot of players, he'll be their favorite pick just because of that. There's not a lot to him in depth. He's just a very simple, but yet very effective killer that straightforwardly goes about the game. Dredge has gotten a lot of buffs since its release. It used to be really weak and pathetic. Essentially, right now, the only reason that Dredge isn't like literally a row up is just that map RNG is way too inconsistent. Instead of adding more lockers, the or making local spawns more consistent. They kind of just like fuff about and buff our killer's powers. But Dredge has gotten much faster with his teleport. He's still has got his Remnant, which can make playing around certain tiles really, really nasty. You can set up some very interesting strategies with some drop towns and some stealth plays. There's a lot going for him. He doesn't have the best anti-loop, but he has a pretty good mobility, and he can sneak up on survivors. He has some funky add-ons that can be pretty unexpected. And generally, just he is a pretty decent killer. But he's like very, very dependent on map RNG, which is why he's lower than someone like Rave or Xenomorph. He could be a little higher up, but unfortunately map RNG just kind of weighs him down. Vecna is someone that people are kind of sleeping on because he is hard to play, and he has a decent bit of RNG to his kit. But if you play him well, you can match up some other killers who you might think are much stronger than them. It's just that compared to a lot of our kills, he requires a lot more thought to be put into it, and kind of just like min-max utilizing multiple spells. But he has some pretty good synergy, especially with recent hits like Knockout, for example. Although Mage Hand is absolutely kind of disgusting. He's just really good when you're playing him well, although not as good as some other killers. Chucky has been nerfed substantially many times because he has just been kind of brain dead, and he used to be basically on a kill timer once his power came off cooldown. Since then, he's been nerfed countless times. He's been buffed and nerfed and nerfed and buffed and buffed and buffed. Now he's in a spot where he isn't extremely aggressive, but you shouldn't underestimate him. Chucky might not be an A plus killer anymore, but he has still so many things going for him. Like he's much smaller, it's much harder to keep track of him. He still has a pretty good chase power. He still has some small stealth. He still has some info. There's a lot of things to his kit that are not as good as they once were, but they're still really good. And you shouldn't discount him and think that he's just dead and got it completely. He is much weaker than before, but he was so strong before that he is still a force to be reckoned with in the Shunignora. Freddy is also a force to be reckoned with after his rework. Some of his more crazy parts of his kit got fixed because they were exploits. But now he has pipe bombs he can set around the map, which you can use pretty effectively. Really nice various loops. He has a Dream Snare that is a pretty effective hinder, and you shouldn't discount out. And he has a potentially very impressive teleport ability, depending on what you're running, what survivors you're up against, especially solo queue survivors for teleport and heals can be very disruptive. He has a lot of things going for him, but then he is also not the master of all trades. He's a jack of all trades. It's kind of killer. Wet is not that great, but he has a lot of other things going for him that are not that big, but he's still pretty effective at them, and he can give a lot of survivors trouble if played well. With Demogorgon, kind of just is an example of power creep. He has a very decent mobility with his portals. He is a very easy to use shred power with a very generous hitbox, with a very generous cooldown, but he just doesn't have that much lethality to his kit, which can really kind of break you down, because if you're playing a lot of short loops on a very interconnected map, you kind of can just suffer because you kind of just need quicker chases. And though you're doing all right in most of them, you just kind of have to sometimes be able to draw out resources faster than other killers, and he has nothing really to compensate him for that. He has a pretty good map ability along with all of his buffs that he's been receiving, but he just still isn't that good. Although he is like very straightforward and can be very fun to play with. And some stuff like crouch attacking has gotten nerfed and partially fixed. So, Death Slinger, someone who hasn't really recovered ever since they updated him and removed the Instascope feature. Sure, he kind of just like has never gotten really any compensation. So while he's still a pretty decent killer with some really high skill ceiling, he just doesn't get rewarded that greatly for utilizing that skill ceiling. He has some decent add-ons. He has some fun skill shots he can do. He can also do some things that our healers just cannot do, like waiting on BT, using his power holding Savaras in place, he can pull Savaras out of pallet, denying pallet rescues. He has a lot of small things going for him, but he just isn't as strong as he once used to be. But he's still a pretty fun killer if you don't have any issues with hereditary. Bob is someone who gotten a lot of buffs over time, where he just kind of went from to just kind of like really nice. He's a really comfortable pick. He can tunnel really well. He can camp really well. He can deny punish Savaras grouping up really well. And honestly, he feels very unpunishing to play because his tantrum cooldown is now non-existent. His hitbox is very small, and there's just so many quality of life buffs that Bubba has gotten that he feels very comfortable. Very turn your brain off and just have fun and don't worry about it. Ooga booga, great type of killer. He doesn't have great map abilities. He sometimes can really struggle with windows and requires a perk to be basically running like a bamboozle or crowd control. I'll deny them. But in the right hands, he can be very lethal indeed. Sadako is someone who flip-flopped a lot. She used to be one of the best coasts in the game. She used to be one of the worst coasts in the game. Now she's just kind of middle of the road, where with all her reworks kind of compromising and creating this like middle of the road killer. She's actually one of the best killers right now in the Blood Moon event because her power item denies people the ability to lug around blood canisters. And actually, since ever the item status, like special items and non-special items rework, that's also been part of her kind of a slowed and anti-loop thingy, because she denies the ability to use like items like syringes or toolboxes with her tapes, which is nice. She has some ability. She has a little bit of cheese power with her intermittent visibility to once she demanifests and manifests. She's just not that great. She has small things going from that are nice, but kind of like basically has almost no anti-loop, and there's a lot of bugs associated with her flickering. And besides that, a lot of the more naughty strategies that she once had that were really unfun but were really effective have gotten removed, and she's just kind of there. But sometimes you can still eke out really strong condemned kills on survivors who are just a little unaware and make some mistakes, so don't discount her by any means. So moving on to killers that you might find just challenging to play. They won't be just outright bad, but you might find a challenging experience. Clown is someone who's gotten a lot of buffs over years. He's just not very good, because he kind of just like he just exists and makes survivors drop pallets a little faster, and that's it. Some people argue that actually, there's like a 500-page way to play him really optimally, where he's really good. I just personally don't see it. I don't think Clown has a hidden chakra that propels him into the high tiers. I think he's just kind of a mid killer with a very kind of mid design that isn't very interesting, and there is not much to him. But he has a pretty decent anti-loop that slows down survivors considerably, especially with add-ons. And he has some map mobility with his piss bottles, and that is about it. Michael Myers is someone that honestly is debatable for me, purely because of his add-ons. If Tombstone Piece didn't exist, I wouldn't even bother about this tier list placement that I have him in right now. But right now, with how stock has been reworked, he is much more consistent than ever before. He can reliably get to tier 3, he doesn't really worry about it. And that means that a lot of more straightforward kind of plays that once you saw against Myers don't really work as effectively, because up close he still stalks pretty fast, and from very far away he stalks really fast. So there's like not a lot to make him not gain stock anymore. Which means he can get to Tombstone Piece much more reliably, and they just eliminate my press for a game, at which point it doesn't matter if he doesn't have any more power for the rest of the game. He just is playing a 3v1. So just based on that, I feel like I should put him like in a pretty good tier. But then, without that on, he's still not that great. But Myers, because he can enter his power much more often. He is risen from the bad tier to actually he's alright. He's challenging. But he has his low terror radius going for him. He has an insta-down going for him. He has a faster vault. He has some nice synergies with perks. He has some things going for him. and especially with certain add-ons, he'll be really really scary. So don't scout him, but you will face some struggles playing. Like sometimes with games will just not work out. Trickster is just a sad, pathetic excuse of a killer that is just kind of made for nobody right now. There's a rework coming for him on the horizon at some point, I think like in a year or something. Right now, he's a 115 range killer, which is weird, and then he can throw knives, he has a main event, he has a lot of combo. He's just, he is basically like a slower, weaker huntress that can eventually, like sometimes, do more interesting plays. He's can play around on hooks really, really well. One of his main events sometimes, but overall he's just not that exciting. You're basically playing like half a mon killer, half like sort of look at the survivor till they die killer. It doesn't have a lot of potential, and you kind of have just to play him in a dirty, boring way to get good results out of him, which I think is sad. The Legion. It's got numerous buffs over time, but ultimately they're just still on one killer who just gets a free injury, and besides that, they basically have like nothing. They just try to make the survivors bored until they quit, which oftentimes does work, and maybe that should propel them at least a row on this tier. But it's just you get a hit, and then you chase the survivor, and then that's it. And if they're already injured, you don't have really a power. Not much to it. Hag has gotten significantly lower because there is now baseline counterplay to her traps. You can play sometimes more effective to play her as just Chag with just using her faster speed on which iridescent one, which got like really buff, so she's like could be like a 117.25% speed killer and use her traps only for body blocking. She still has some pretty good add-ons, and she still can be lethal, but the baseline counterplay just kind of like made her slow down substantially, and she's just not as good as she once was. And the strategies that she used to rely on, like kind of like hard camping, have gotten nerfed. And a lot of more perks and baseline counterplay got introduced, so she kind of slowed down, and she's just a very outdated killer that doesn't fit the idea anymore at all. The Pig, um, though she's gotten some buffs, she has a much better chase power sometimes. Some add-ons, she actually have pretty frightening chase power. She just sometimes just kind of loses it because she needs to get traps in early, and to guarantee how traps getting early, she kind of needs to get an add-on space for that. Mox RNG G is now semi-fixed, but sometimes it can just be an opportune moment when sometimes you're just not pressuring the survivor as well. There's just so many parts of a kit that can go wrong and that will go wrong. Unfortunately, it is just sad. You know, she's still not in a great spot, but she has gotten a hair raise adjustment recently, so her stealth is a little better. So you'll struggle a bit with Pig, but you can get pretty good results of her. And if players are inattentive, or if you're running really dickish build, which please don't, you can kind of even force head pop sometimes. So you can get pretty good results of her, but you will have to fight for it and be a little cheeky, be a little dirty, and think about what's happening. Ghostface is a killer that is pretty boring, but he has gotten so many buffs to his add-ons and his base kit cooldowns over time that it's kind of nutty. I think he's the most add-on base kit integrated killer in the history of Dead by Daylight. Like I think he had his add-ons integrated into the base kit like 20 times separately. I swear. Every other patch, you know, every Ghostface has had add-ons integrated into the base kit. Partially. And then again, and then again, and again. And where he is now is he is a killer that kind of insta-downs people occasionally. He's stealthy occasionally, and that's about it. He has some alright add-ons, but besides that, he doesn't have a lot of things going for him. From a lot of the jank kind of murders him with reveals, or you no longer, because of the dedicated service, sometimes your leans will not register, so stalking will be much more difficult. There's just a lot of things that make Ghostface not excel, but he's still a pretty alright pick if you're not facing the most coordinative teams. You can play him for spook factor. He has some perks that work well on him. He's alright. He's not great, but he is alright. He has some silly things you can do, especially with his new terrorist buff. and an add-on and a perk, and then you can just nullify your terrorist chase. But unfortunately, it still doesn't make a lot of things happen for him. The Doctor is someone who's got many like small quality of light buffs over his time, but at the end of the day, his power is kind of more dedicated to finding survivors than actually killing them. He has an anti-loop that gets you zoom a little closer, zoom a little closer, zoom a little closer, and then eventually get there, and then you have to do that whole thing again, which means essentially you just kind of don't have a lot to do with him. He's gotten much stronger, because he doesn't have to run all the detonation delay add-ons anymore. Those that could integrate the baseline. Like part of this kit, he can then unhook sometimes pretty well, or totems. He can find survivors pretty easily, but besides that, there's just no things going for him because his anti-loop is kind of just bad. And moving on to the just bad tier is the Trapper. The Trapper, the original killer, the poster child, the baby boy, the little birthday boy. He's just sad and pathetic because he has to not only set up his power like a trap killer, he has to go find his power outside of the map, then set it up, then get it turned off, then he just has so many prerequisites for ultimately a power that isn't even that good and requires a lot of thought, and the maps have changed, so he can't even hide his traps anymore. It's just, he's just sad and he's pathetic, and even though he's gotten buffed, like I think he's gotten continuously, I don't think they buffed for forever. Over the entire history of Dead by Daylight, he's just very sad. And the Skull Merchant has just literally been nerfed into the ground, specifically because behavior don't want people playing her, because she is going to get a rework in around half a year. And so she is pretty much unplayable, and she doesn't have really a power. And that's it. Those are all the killers in Dead by Daylight, ranked from best to the bad. And if you disagree with me, well, actually, you're wrong, and legally, you can't disagree with me. But if you'd like to voice your opinions of, oh my lord, this is the worst killers I've ever seen, in the comments, feel free. You might get deleted or banned, or I will find you. But if you want to respectfully disagree and talk about, actually, I think Dracula might be better than Blight, or actually, I think Trickster is a few tiers higher, or Knight is not as good, or stuff like that, simple stuff. Chilling. Realizing that we're viewing the game a little differently. We're talking about public matches, not competitive Dead by Daylight, because that's a different game, and we're talking about solo queue and not Navy Force SEAL Swifts that you're constantly convinced you're running against. Well, feel free to discuss respectfully in the comments. And nobody has still told me if I like cheese, so if you do tell me about it. And besides that, this has been Kisser. I'll bid you peeps.